you're watching Leaders Speakeasy with me, Rizal Kapli.
And me, Rozina Aziz. We hope you are keeping safe and well. Get vaccinated, stay home. And if you have to go out, be sure to follow the SOPs.
My co-anchor is the CEO of Metamorphosa, a former news and corporate woman who now mentors, coaches, trains, and consults leaders and entrepreneurs globally.
Thanks, Rizal. Our guest today is Senior Partner, Global Learning Leader at EY in London. A TED Talk speaker, Riaz is also Chairman and co-founder of the One Degree Academy that provides free, high-quality education to less fortunate children. He is also a council member of the Hulk Prize, foundation that helps global young social entrepreneurs build profitable enterprises with sustainability goals.
Riaz Shah is joining us from Palo Alto. As the pandemic disrupts education globally, we'll get Riaz's insights on various initiatives he has led to democratize and disrupt education for children, young social entrepreneurs, and his global work community in order to prepare and empower them for the future.
Riaz, welcome to Leaders Speakeasy with Rizal and Rozina. We last caught up in, I believe it was September 2019, although we have kept in touch thanks to technology. You've recovered fully from COVID, and after being UK bound in this pandemic, I believe you're traveling again. How are you?
I am, yes. Thank you. Thank you, both of you, for having me. And it's great to see you both. I'm sorry I'm here on the other side of the world where it's getting dark outside. So apologies for that. Yeah, I've got better and I'm traveling again a little bit where I can.
Let's start with the questions here, Riaz. You were born in Pakistan in a village with no running water and electricity. You spoke no English and moved to the UK at the age of 7, where you later grew up in public or state housing. What was that experience like, and how did your early experience shape you as a leader?
Well, you know what? I think the experience was really good. One thing I learned is that one thing I really loved is how patient everybody was with me. Here I was, a kid who didn't speak English, and instead of the teachers getting angry or upset, they persevered with me, they were patient with me. I learned about the kindness of strangers and what an impact it had on me. So one of the key things it made me think about was, how can I then repay that kindness to others? And I hope, every day I think about how can I do that in my life.
Riaz, I believe we've spoken about this. A late friend of yours left a deep imprint within you and led you to search for what you call your true north, which changed your course as a person and as a leader. Perhaps you can share with us your inspiring story.
Sure. Well, it was about 10 years ago now that when I was around 50 years old, and I met this young guy, 29 years old, Adnan Jaffrey. And Adnan said to me, you need to meet with me tomorrow and have lunch with me, because I'm going to tell you something that'll change your life. And I laughed, but there was something so charismatic about him that I did decide to go meet him the next day. And he told me about this charity he had just set up, which was helping 16-year-olds understand, mentor them and help them understand, get better self-belief and understand maths and English and pass their high school diplomas. And he and I, there was something about him. He and I just became friends. We became very close. And I got a little bit involved with the charities. But a few months later, he got sick. And he was in his hospital bed and he said, come over here and hold my hand. And I held his hand and he said, I want you to promise me 2 things. One, if something happens to me, I want you to take over the One Degree mentoring program, this program that mentors 16-year-old kids. Mm-hmm. And I said, nothing's going to happen to you. You're going to be fine. But yeah, if something happens to you, I will take over that program. He said, the second thing I want you to promise me is that you'll create a free school that the government allows business people to set up schools in the UK. And you'll set up one of these schools and you'll call it the One Degree Academy. And you'll help serve the same underprivileged kids that we're trying to help with this other program. And I said, I can't do that. I don't have any kids. I don't know anybody in government. I don't know the first thing about education. I wouldn't know where to start.
Mm-hmm. And so this was 10 years ago.
10 years ago. I said, I can't promise you that. And he said, okay, promise me you'll try. And I said, okay, I promise you I'll try. And 8 days later, he died.
Oh, no.
Cancer. And I spent the next couple of years trying to find people to help me fulfill these promises. We on the mentoring program, we've now helped in the last 10 years 750 kids pass their high school diplomas. And as you know, Rosie, 5 years ago we opened our brand new school called the One Degree Academy. And then really did change my life and make it much more about helping others and find a way of how I could fulfill that purpose that he gave me.
Speaking of purpose, what is the most important thing that defines you, that truly defines you as a leader, Riaz? And what advice would you give to yourself at your graduation?
I think what defines me now, because it changes over time now, is this idea of democratization, which is how can you make available to everybody those things that are previously available only to an elite few? How can you open up things like education to the whole world? And so that really does define me in lots of ways, and we can talk about that later. Mm-hmm. In terms of advice when graduating, I always think of what Larry King says. He says, "I never learned anything while I was talking." And that would be my advice to myself when I was graduating, is you need to listen more. And that's when you learn stuff, is when you listen.
Riaz, the pandemic has disrupted education as the world prepares to reset amidst technological advancements and a challenging economic landscape. How will education evolve to create greater equitability and prepare people for all ages for the future of work?
Technology is really helping that. So technology is really democratizing access in a lot of ways. So previously, if you needed to know something like the GDP of Vietnam previously, you had to go to a library and look it up, and it took you forever. Now you can do it in 10 seconds. So suddenly that information that was only available to the privileged few is now available to all. And I think things like COVID have accelerated those trends. And so we've got unlimited knowledge now available to all of us who have an internet connection. And so I think in this new world, when you can know anything, anytime, actually it's not so much about what you know anymore, it's about the questions you ask now. That becomes much more important. And that's one of the things we teach our kids at the One Degree Academy, to ask better questions.
So, Riaz, you spoke about your very young late friend Adnan Jafri. So young to have, gone too soon. And because of that, you started to work on providing free and high quality education. I remember you talking about it's not just free, it's really high quality education to less fortunate children in London. And London, as we all know, is one of the most expensive cities in the world. So you had no prior experience, you said, right. And you had to take over, because of your promise to him, the One Degree mentoring, and then you had to look up people and then went on to set up the One Degree Academy. So, yeah. And I believe you took a sabbatical for that, right?
Yeah, I had to take 18 months off work.
18 months.
I'm just young to go and do that.
Yes. Yeah. So share with us, how do these, maybe get into a bit more details, how do these initiatives democratize education, and what makes the One Degree Academy and One Degree Mentoring, what makes them unique, and what are some of your proudest achievements that we can perhaps learn from?
Well, I'm not sure we're unique, right? So I think we're part of a movement that is trying to improve outcomes for the most disadvantaged children. And it's often those children that are most poorly served by the education system. So the poorest kids who need education the most often have access to the poorest education. So our thinking was, how could we give them the kind of education you would normally have to pay for? And give them that quality of education. We focus on what is the core knowledge that you need to learn. Everybody needs to learn maths and English and things like that, the basics. Then what's the character that we want you to have as a product of our school? We want you to have responsibility. When things go wrong, we want you to say, how can I help fix this? Not, it's not my fault, somebody else did this. So it's about knowledge and character. It's also about cultural capital. So think about this, if you grew up in a middle class environment, you probably had an uncle or an aunt who was doing something professional, who had an influence on you. If you grow up without that, with nothing, and you had uncles and aunts who maybe were in prison or, work in very basic jobs at the bottom of the rung, you don't have that cultural capital. You don't have somebody who says, let me introduce you to somebody. And so it's about core knowledge, character, cultural capital, and the final C for us is about care. We think that if we love the kids who come to our school, that they will repay that to us in the school in terms of kindness and be great kids, great students, and do really well. So they're the kind of 4 C's that we focus on. It doesn't make us unique, but they're the 4 things that we focus on. We're preparing children for jobs that don't exist yet. So it doesn't make sense to teach a bunch of old stuff and to focus on old ways of thinking. We're very modern. We think about character, knowledge, cultural capital, care, and computing as well.
Well, I think that's a really interesting approach, because you are giving them like a quality education in a very holistic manner, like you said. You're looking at 3 different pillars. So if we go on a more
Sorry, I was just going to say, and actually, Rozina, we even have a little farm in our tiny school. We have a little farm where the kids look after chickens and other small animals. Because
so chicken is the 5th C. That's the 5th C.
Great. Yeah, chicken is a very good C. It's not very good when they die, by the way. But anyway, yes.
So maybe if we look at education, the future of education in more general, in a more broad sense, you have your initiative in London, but if we look at the broader world, when we look at the future of education for children, how do you see that in the future, given the growing divide between the haves and have-nots, as we see in the pandemic?
Yeah. Well, actually, what we've found in the UK is that the education inequality divide has been closing somewhat in the last 10 years. COVID did make that slightly worse, but generally it's been closing. So it can be done. We can close the divide. I think in order to do it, you need commitment. As a government, you need commitment to put good schools and good leadership in the places that they're most needed. And the best schools should be encouraged to take on the more challenging kids. That's really what we want to focus on. I have a very simple measure for a school. So if any parents are watching this and you're thinking about, hey, I'm not sure which of these schools to take my kid to, have a look at one measure. That's attendance. Look at the percentage attendance of that school. So the average attendance in the UK is something like 95%. Our attendance is close to 99% in our school. Now, I'm incredibly proud of that number, because that tells me that when kids aren't using excuses like, oh, Mum, I'm not feeling well, I don't want to go to school today. What we find is kids say, I'm not feeling well, but I still want to go to school today. So we measure that attendance number very carefully. So any parents out there, go look at the attendance percentage of school in deciding whether or not to send your kids there. Kids love going to school in great schools.
And Riaz, education has been disrupted globally due to COVID-19. Maybe briefly, what can we in Malaysia learn about education for children affected during these difficult times, and what should we expect moving forward?
Yeah, I think all governments around the world need to have great teachers in a culture of high expectations of the staff and for the kids. And there's one organization in Malaysia that does this really, really well, and that's Teach for Malaysia. Teach for Malaysia was set up about 10 years ago. It's part of the Teach for All kind of consortium around the world, set up by a friend of ours called Wendy Cobb. And what it does is it gives very bright graduates out of university a 2-year fellowship to go and teach in a tough school, typically in an inner city. And out of that, at the end of that, they get asked, do you want to carry on teaching, or do you want to now go and become an accountant or something? And it's great that, what we find around the world is roughly half of the people who go on this program then want to stay in teaching. This is a great way of getting really great teachers into the system. The better the teachers, the better the kids, and the better the outcomes.
Actually, I know somebody who was on that program. Really great, really very intellectual, very intelligent. But unfortunately, she's gone back to London. I mean, she's Malaysian. She studied in London. She's gone back to London. But you know, it's your gain. She started teaching at a school in London.
Great. So nearly all of our teachers in the One Degree Academy come from the Teach for UK equivalent. We call it Teach First.
Mm-hmm. And Rosie told me, or you told me that Riaz was responsible for getting you involved in mentoring global social entrepreneurs. Yeah, Rosie?
Yes, Riaz got us, quite a few of us involved in the Hulk Prize during our reunion. I've just finished a grill session, a couple of nights ago. So what happens is Hulk Prize it provides university students, Rizal. They provide the university students mentoring, access to a global network of experts and investors, and an ultimate prize money every year of $1 million US. And what they do, they train to grow a sustainable and profitable social enterprise.
So Riaz, what to you is the greatest contribution of the Hulk Prize to these young social entrepreneurs, and what leadership qualities separate those who succeed and those who don't?
Yeah, I think the wonderful thing about Hulk Prize, and I think you talked to my friend Ahmad, who created the Hulk Prize, is that we're encouraging an entire generation of kids to do good and make money, and to think about that. So this year, I think we've had almost 600,000 students around the world enter a team for the Hulk Prize. So even if that was the only outcome, which is you got 600,000 kids all interested in how to make money and do good at the same time, that would be a brilliant outcome, wouldn't it? Just that alone. And instead, what we do is we then take all those teams, and we end up, as Rosie says, with one team ends up winning $1 million to actually execute their idea for a business. It's super great. What we find is the teams that are most successful, generally same as entrepreneurs that are really successful. And as you know, Rizal, you spend time with EY at the Entrepreneur of the Year Award. Successful entrepreneurs are ones that have a passion for the customer's pain. They really understand what is the pain customers are feeling and understand that. And they can communicate a vision that excites people to join them or excites customers to buy from them. And then finally, they have this resilience to keep going. And they don't waste time avoiding failure. They actually keep trying things that fail. And it kind of reminds me of this marshmallow experiment. There's a wonderful TED talk about this. And you know this marshmallow challenge that you do with spaghetti, and you kind of build a tower with a marshmallow on top, and you hope it doesn't fall over. And when this guy did this challenge with kids, and then he did it with CEOs, guess who built the highest tower? It was the kids.
The kids.
The reason why the kids typically on average built a tower twice as high as the CEOs, it's because the kids did on average 5 attempts at a tower, where the CEOs spent a lot of time planning and discussing and did only a single event. So entrepreneurs who are successful have this resilience to keep going. They're not afraid of failure. They're okay with failure. They just keep trying.
But Riaz, Rosie, before we go to the commercial break, can I just ask one question? Riaz, this quest to do good all the time, how do you get people to come on board and to also be part of that quest to do good? Have people told you off for wanting to do good all the time?
No, not at all. Isn't it wonderful to spread good stuff around the world? I mean, this year's challenge is all about food security. Isn't it wonderful? We can have 600,000 kids around the world focused on food security for everyone. Next year's challenge is about jobs. Can you create a business that can create thousands of jobs? I think these are wonderful things. This is exactly what we should be doing.
We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue to talk about disrupting education to empower learning for life amidst disruptions.
We're back on Leaders Speakeasy with Rizal with me and Rozina with Riaz Shah, Senior Partner, Global Learning Leader of EY based in London, but he's now in Palo Alto. Rosie?
Riaz, when we first met in business school in 2011, my God, that's 10 years ago, you shared how, I believe we had this conversation, and if I remember correctly, you shared how you used to design and train, talent development programs for EY partners, and I believe some of the employees as well. And I think EY is in about 150 countries.
Yes.
Yes. So since then, you have worked on new landmark initiatives. So firstly, tell us about the EY badges. How is this different? How does this initiative fit into your mantra of democratizing education, even in the workplace?
Right. Well, when I returned after my sabbatical, when we were building the school, one of the things that the CEO asked me was, how can we come up with a system whereby we can prepare our people better for the future? And so the idea was we could create a bunch of sort of virtual learning that anybody, any one of our 300,000 employees around the world could do. And we thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we turned it into a game? Right. So basically, you do so many hours of learning, we give you a bronze badge. If you do even more learning, we give you a silver badge. And if you're a real specialist in an area, we give you a gold badge. And if you're the world's expert in something, I don't know, blockchain, you get the platinum badge. So this little idea of badges, and I remember some of our leaders saying to me, that's a ridiculous idea. Nobody's going to be in for that. And so we launched this idea. We came up with a bunch of badges really around two things. One is the tech skill set that we think you need to be successful in the future. And the second is the leadership mindset you need to be successful. So for example, leadership mindset is curiosity. If you're not continually curious, then the fact that you learned about AI once is a waste of time. You know, that AI knowledge is going to be out of date in 3-4 years' time. So you need this mindset of curiosity as well as a tech skill set. So skill set, mindset. And so we created these badges, and here we are 3 years later. As of this morning, we've done over 175,000 badges that have been earned.
Wow.
So what does that translate to in terms of the people and in terms of the countries, the people who have participated, given that in the early years, people thought that, it was like nobody was going to be interested. How have they benefited?
I mean, every country in the world, every country, Palestinian Authority has got some badges. Any country you can think of in the world where we operate, we've got badges in Syria, for example. People have got badges, and that's wonderful. I mean, they're equally popular in countries like the UK as they are in countries like the Philippines and in Malaysia as well. The impact for us is that people are learning skills that our clients need, and these skills will be useful for them going forward in their future. I read a story this morning on LinkedIn, and it's one of our employees in the Philippines. And she said that, she came from a very poor background in the Philippines, managed to get a scholarship, eventually ended up at EY, and has now started learning badges so that she can now use those badges towards our EY Tech MBA. So that to me fills my heart with lots of pride, because if we can impact people the other side of the world, who come from humble beginnings and who can end up with an MBA, isn't that a wonderful thing? And we can give them the skills they need to be even more successful in the future.
Riaz, let's talk about that MBA. Well, because we know that business schools are not within the reach of all due to its prohibitive costs and also work demands. But the fully accredited EY Tech MBA offered in partnership with the HALT International Business School is open free to all 300,000 global EY employees. Share with us the strategy behind this.
It was a simple strategy, really. I was just trying to think of how else can I get people excited about learning skills of the future. So, we came up with this idea of EY Tech MBA, a tech-focused MBA, and that would be flexible. People could do it anytime they wanted. Most of it involves, online learning, but there is an element of live professor learning, and there's a group project as well that you've got to do. We wanted it to be future focused. The problem with the business schools, traditional business schools, is they don't update their curriculum very often. And often you'll find 3-4 years go by before a curriculum's updated. Our curriculum is updated every 4 months. So for example, from September, our curriculum will include quantum computing. So we continually add to the curriculum, and it's free. So it's flexible, future focused, and free to all of our employees. We want to encourage people to learn these future skills. And I just love that we are able to give access to high quality education that would otherwise only be available to an elite few, as you say.
So for your EY Tech MBA, it's interesting that you said that you renew the curriculum every 4 months.
Yeah.
And I believe you focus on 3 pillars. Maybe share with us a bit more, especially we want to really understand more. I know you've touched on it earlier. Like, how does your approach stack up against that of leading business schools? And how does that help you to prepare your global employees for the future of work?
Sure. So for our MBA, you need to get so many EY badges, and the EY badges, you need to get so many in technology, so many in leadership, and so many in business. Okay. And once you've got so many of those badges, and by the way, you don't just get a badge by doing learning, you have to then apply that learning. And somebody else has to say, yes, this person did apply this learning on this project. So it's kind of accredited, if you like, internally. So once you've got your badges, you then do some live professor modules, learning, together with the rest of the cohort. And then finally, you do a capstone project. In total, it's probably about 100 hours of work, because what you get is a real MBA, and you can go on and do a PhD if you want. It's different from a regular business school in that you're not all physically in the same place. But actually, this last year, how many business schools?
Nobody is in the same place, right? But they go to business schools now.
I don't know. I bet it was just luck that we ended up doing what we did. But anyway, it's more akin to an online MBA that you would get at a business school than a live one. It is different. You don't get the same networking opportunities that you would get typically at a live business school. But then again, you're not paying $60,000 in a year of your life to do it either.
But that's how Riaz got us all arm twisted to do. It's great. It's great for the HALT prize.
Yeah, I tell you, I keep coming back to this idea of democratizing education, and I'm sorry, I'm like a broken record for it. But when we launched the EY Tech MBA, I had an email from a Syrian employee, and he said to me, I started my MBA in Syria, and then the war broke out. And so I was a refugee, and I found my way all the way through to Germany, and I now work at EY Germany. And I just want to say to you, thank you, thank you, thank you, because what you've offered me is a chance to complete my MBA, and otherwise there's no way I would be able to do it. That's democratizing education.
I mean, that's a great story.
Yeah, but Riaz, also share with us the ripple effects that you've observed so far. You told us about the early wins. You told us about the Syrian person who went to Germany. But what ripple effects have you observed from the EY badges and also the EY Tech MBA initiatives?
Yeah, the ripple effect is partly, if you find people around you who are learning stuff and they're getting badges and they're getting recognition, and as a result of that, they're getting opportunities to work on projects, then you go, you have this fear of missing out, FOMO, right? And you want to do the same. So there's a ripple effect there. You're encouraging more and more people to do this learning. So far, we've had 25 graduates of our MBA. I expect we will get to 100 by the end of this calendar year. We have 3 per year. And I fully expect that we'll be doing something like 500 graduates a year of the EY Tech MBA. So massive, impact. The biggest thing I think for me is that we're encouraging people to do lifelong learning. That learning isn't something that you just do once. In the olden days, we all thought about our lives in 3 stages, right? There's an early stage, maybe until you're 21, when all you're doing is learning. The middle stage of maybe 40 odd years when you're working, and then you have the final stage, maybe 10, 15, 20 years, maybe more if you're lucky, where you're playing golf and then eventually you die. The world is going to be very different soon, right? People are going to be living much longer, 100 plus. And when you're living to 100, it doesn't make sense that you could possibly learn everything you need to learn in those first 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
It even makes sense that you could only work 40 years if you're going to live to 100. You're going to have to you're going to have to continually learn. You're going to have to continually work throughout your life, and you're going to have to continually play rather than leaving all your playing till the end of your career. And I like that. I like this idea that we're going to turn these three pillars onto the side, continually learning, continually working, continually playing. Lifelong learning is key to that, because we're all going to have many, many jobs over our lives.
What has been the reaction or the feedback from the global EY clients, especially your major ones, because then, you know, they straddle across different offices? I mean, are you working with them to perhaps extend that, the EY badges and the EY Tech MBA accreditation? Because I would imagine that, you know, maybe they'll look and see in the first year or so, and then when they see that the momentum has picked up, and I'm sure there'll be interest.
That's exactly what's happened, Rozina. You know, what we've found is that our biggest clients have been calling us and saying, how do you do this? We'd like to do the same. Can you help us do the same? And that's exactly what we're doing. Part of why I'm here in Silicon Valley is I'm meeting with some of our partners who are helping us with the MBA, and we are looking to extend it to our clients as well.
Excellent. So what do you see, going back to democratization, right? What do you see as the future of education? Because, you know, the world is getting really unpredictable. Yeah. But, you know, specifically, do you think that educational democracy will win, or will money still talk?
Money will always talk, right? There'll probably always be a Harvard, won't they, for those really elite people who are willing to pay for it. But I think what's happened is that in the same way as the Gutenberg, you know, project democratized access to literature, technology is doing the same for learning, and COVID has accelerated that. You know, tech has a way of democratizing things. A few years ago, when we had smartphones, they were only for the wealthy. Now we've got farmers in Kenya with their own smartphones. This is the same is happening in education. There's tons of content available for free to anybody with an internet connection. And the other thing is, in the past, if you wanted to learn something live, in person, you needed to go to, you had to put up with the bagel guy, what I call the bagel guy, B-A-G-E-L, because—
like bagels.
And the bagel guy, what I mean by that is the best available guy locally, or gal locally, best available guy locally. Now, with access to the internet, etc., you can learn from the best available guy or gal globally. That's a big, big difference. Why would you learn strategy consulting from a professor around the corner when you could learn it from the very best professors in the world? So I'm actually really optimistic that education will continue to democratize, that more and more of us will have access to lifelong learning, and that will all be much better for all of us.
That's great. In April this year, Riaz, we interviewed Ahmad Ashkar, founder and CEO of the Halt Prize Foundation, and a highly successful entrepreneur in his own right. He named you as an important mentor for him. So in turn, who is your mentor, and what do you find the most valuable thing about having leadership mentors?
I've had lots and lots of mentors, too many to name, throughout my career, throughout my life. But, you know, I think this is beginning to change. When you think of a mentor, you picture an older, wiser person. And I now find that I can learn just as much from a young person who doesn't have a lot of experience, or from somebody in a very different field. So yeah. My friend is a professional musician. I talk to him about some of the things I'm trying to do, and I learn a lot from just that conversation, because he's just from a different field altogether. I mean, in the past, if you had, let's say, 15 years experience of 15 years experience of marketing, that was a plus, wasn't it? Now, in this new world where everything's digital, the fact that you've had 15 years of marketing in the old world, that's a minus.
You have to unlearn it.
Sorry?
You have to unlearn a lot of things.
Okay. I mean, the problem with a lot of experience and success is that the more successful you are, the more difficult it is for you to adapt, because you see a problem and you apply the same solution to it again and again. So it's good to learn from people who can see an issue from a very different perspective and who don't have that curse of success.
Riaz, you're very passionate about learning, tech, and also democratizing education. What can we expect from you next? Briefly, Riaz.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm here in Silicon Valley as well is we are just setting up the EY Tech University here in Silicon Valley. And we are going to be using that with our own partners to get them up to speed on tech, but also our clients as well. So I'm really excited about that. Nobody has done that before. And the next thing is we are developing 2 new master's degrees, one in business analytics and one in sustainability. So our people in EY will have even more access to even more great learning.
Riaz, we will now move on to the more fun, popular segment, quick fire questions. You have only 20 seconds to answer each question. I know you quite well, but what we want is for our viewers to get a glimpse of Riaz Shah on a more personal level. Are you set?
All right.
20 seconds.
Let's go.
So, Riaz, I'm told that you travel extensively for work and leisure. How many countries have you visited so far, and which one is your favorite place to visit and why?
I've lost count of the number of countries. Last time I did do it for some Facebook quiz that Rosie did. It was over 100. In terms of best countries, it's too difficult. It's like saying who's your favorite child or favorite niece and nephew. But I would say, Italy is one of my favorite countries to visit.
Okay, I know you love fast cars. He drives fast. Other than that, what is the craziest adrenaline pumping activity that you've ever taken? Would you do it again?
Yeah, 3 months ago, I jumped off a mountain, and it was in one of those paragliders, and I really didn't want to do it. I was kind of forced into it, and as soon as we were jumping off the mountain, I was like, what a stupid thing to do, but I totally loved it. I'll do it again.
So, Riaz, other than work, what keeps you awake at night?
Nothing keeps me awake at night. I like to sleep well. I think sleep is really important so that you can do a great job next time. I don't worry about too much. I always think about, there's so many things that are wrong with this world. There's so many things that we have to cope with at the moment, like COVID and so on. You can't change the environment. The only thing you can change is how you respond to it. So that's what I focus on, is how can I change my response to whatever's going wrong in life.
It is often said it's lonely at the top. Does this resonate with you, and why?
No, not at all. I hang out with so many different people at so many different places. No, I don't feel lonely at all. I think it does feel lonely if you decide that you're very special and nobody else can actually tell you what to do or give you any ideas. But I love talking to people, love getting ideas from them. Not at all.
Thank you very much, Riaz. We've enjoyed hosting you, but like all good things, this too must come to an end. Briefly, do you have any parting words?
No, I just really enjoyed my time with you. Thank you so much. I hope some of what I said might resonate with others. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to carry on the conversation.
Thank you to Riaz Shah, Senior Partner, Global Learning Leader of EY in London. He is also the chairman and co-founder of One Degree Academy and a council member of the HALT Prize. Riaz shared with us here today how he is disrupting education at different stages of life to democratize access and prepare children, students, and leaders for the future in a disrupted world.
Be sure to join us on Leaders Speakeasy with Rizal and Rozina on Astro AWANI channel 501, our website, mobile app, LinkedIn, social media, and Astro Go for more conversations on leadership during this pandemic. I am Rizal Zokapli.
And I'm Rozina Aziz, wishing you good health and the very best in your career, business, and future endeavors. Stay home and stay safe.